All right, let's talk about bacteria. Some things about bacteria that we need to know are true about all bacteria are that they are unicellular organisms without a nucleus. That means their nuclear material or their DNA is spread throughout the whole cell. They are prokaryotes. You can see on the right, it doesn't matter the shape of the bacteria. What matters is that they are surrounded by a cell membrane. They are filled with cytoplasm, and in the middle of the cell, they normally have circular DNA. We learned that as chromosomes. Well, their chromosomes are circular. Some examples that you might already know. The first one is Streptococcus. This is what causes strep throat. So if you have ever had strep throat, this is the bacteria that was in your throat. There is E. coli. On the right, you can see that little hairy picture of E. coli. This is a type of food poisoning. And our last type of food poisoning, or our last example, is Salmonella. This one is common in raw chicken, so raw eggs, uncooked chicken. This is why you have to make sure chicken is cooked properly. Our first group of bacteria are called cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria are autotrophs. Remember, that means they make their own food. Some examples of cyanobacteria are blue-green algae and red algae. The reason they are autotrophs is because they have chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll is what fills chloroplast, which are the organelle in plant cells that make the food for the plant. So, they have the insides of the chloroplast, the chlorophyll, which allows them to make their own food. The cyanobacteria are often found in oceans, ponds, anywhere aquatic, lakes, streams, that type of environment. Some pictures of cyanobacteria. You can see it's very pretty. Now, that was our first group. Our second group of bacteria are the opposite. They are heterotrophs, meaning they cannot make their own food. They must eat. There are three main shapes of bacteria. We name bacteria by putting together their shape and their grouping. So first we're going to talk about their shape. The first shape is cocci. That is a round bacteria. You can see it almost looks like Cocoa Puffs. Our second shape is bacilli. They are rod-shaped. I like to think Mike and Ike. And our third shape is spirilla, or a spiral shape, like a little wiggly worm. Now, these three words are the root words of our bacteria's name. Then we add a prefix, and it depends what it groups as to choose our prefix. So there are three. Our first prefix is strepto, meaning chains. So if we have the example streptococcus, we see the prefix strepto, meaning chains, and the root word coccus, meaning round. So we know our bacteria is going to be round chains. And streptococcus is the bacteria that causes strep throat. You can see here strep throat in the back of someone's throat. Well, when you go to the doctor and you have strep throat, they swab it. They stick a Q-tip down your throat and they wiggle it around and they get some of the bacteria and look at it under a microscope. And you have strep throat if that bacteria looks like this picture. Round chains. Our second prefix is diplo, meaning pairs. That means the example diplobacilli, we see the prefix diplo, pairs, the root word bacilli, meaning rods. So diplobacilli means rod pairs. Here are some pictures. At the top, we have a cartoon version. In the middle, we have a microscopic version, and on the left, we have a picture of what diplococci would look like. The last prefix we have is staphylo, which means clumps or clusters. An example we have here is staphylococcus. We know the prefix staphylo means staphylococcus. The prefix means clumps or clusters. The root word coccus means round. So we have round clumps. An example of this is a staph infection. Now this picture is kind of icky. And so if you don't looking at like a wound, it looks like a pimple, like a big pimple, then just don't look. Just close your eyes and listen to what I'm saying. So here's a picture of someone with a staph infection. So what happens is the bacteria gets under your skin and your body gets irritated. It starts to fill with pus. You have to go to the doctor. They take care of it. They clean it. They give you some medication. And if you were to look at the bacteria under the microscope, you would see the circles, the round circles, in sporadic, which means random, clumps and clusters. All right, if you don't like icky things, you can open your eyes again. So I do regret to inform you that bacteria is everywhere, but it's not really a bad thing because not all bacteria is bad. Some of it is extremely helpful. Bacteria is found in your body, both good and bad, like bad bacteria. Bacteria is found in food. Some food needs bacteria to be made. Some food gets bacteria when it's spoiled. Bacteria is found no matter the weather. It doesn't matter how hot it gets. Bacteria is found in volcanoes. It doesn't matter how cold it gets. Bacteria is found in ice. Bacteria is found everywhere. And even if you clean using 99.9% bacteria-killing cleaner, bacteria will come back because it reproduces. Now, cleaning is a good thing. It gets rid of excess bacteria. It gets rid of as much as we can. It's just unavoidable to have bacteria. That's why we constantly clean. That's why right now we are constantly washing our hands. We're keeping ourselves healthy. Now, I talked about reproducing of bacteria. Let's look at how they do that. What they do is one bacteria cell actually starts to pinch in the middle, like you see in this picture on the left, and it splits into two. And then those two bacteria cells grow until they are the full sized, and then they'll split again. And this process is known as fission. Let's watch this video of fission. Look at how fast they divide. Now it is a time lapse, but we start with just a few bacteria. Just one bacteria, if it divides every 20 minutes, it could produce 5,000 billion bacteria in one day. I didn't stutter. I meant to say billion twice. This is why if you have a bacteria infection, you can get very sick very quickly. Now, yes, bacteria can harm you, but here are 3 examples of helpful bacteria. Our first kind is a decomposer, and so decomposers are going to be in natural material, and they break down. They're essentially nature's recycling machine. They break down old organic matter into good nutrients and soil and good stuff. There is good bacteria in your gut and in your lungs that help prevent infections. If you've ever heard of probiotic yogurt, it has good bacteria for your gut. That's their whole plus side of their commercials. Bacteria is even used in making food, like sauerkraut, in vinegar, in all the dairy food. But as you well know, some bacteria is harmful. Some bacteria spoils food. Some bacteria makes us really sick. Some bacteria just makes things dirty. And so there is good, there is bad, and there are some that are indifferent to us. So it just depends what we're looking at. All right. At this point, please continue with our lesson on Schoology.